Families of 3 fallen Baltimore firefighters planning to sue the city. How they say these losses could have been avoided and the difference they hope to make.
This is about more than money. This is about change.
A local community rocked by bloodshed.
The violence is overwhelming.
A mother's grief after her son becomes one of 4 murdered in less than 24 hours. Mayor Scott halfway through his first term and one of his biggest campaign promises in question. Fox 45 News examines the violent crime numbers during his tenure.
He has done a horrible job when it comes to crime.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Maxine Stryker. Mary Bubala has the night off. Fox 45 News is demanding answers tonight about a city in dysfunction.
Today marks the halfway point for Mayor Brandon Scott. He was inaugurated 2 years ago during a time of relentless violence. And from violence to an E. coli water contamination and divides within City Hall, the mayor's second year in office proved to be a controversial time. Now, we have live team coverage of the problems the city is facing. Jeff Abel is pressing the mayor on crime, while Keith Daniels hears from residents on edge in a neighborhood that's seen 4 murders in 24 hours.
But first, months after 3 Baltimore firefighters were killed while fighting a fire in a vacant home, their families have officially put the city on notice, informing city leaders of their intent to sue them. The family tells me their loved ones' deaths could have been prevented and someone needs to be held accountable. It's been nearly 1 year.
It feels like just yesterday I was down here all day long.
Since 3 firefighters were killed battling a vacant home fire along South Stricker Street.
We're all definitely feeling it, especially with Christmas time here. So it's really, really hard.
The home has since been demolished. 3 crosses now mark a memorial to Lieutenant Paul Buttram, Lieutenant Kelsey Sadler, and Kenny Lacayo.
This is where I feel closest with her, with them. So I always stop down here and I'll put some fresh flowers down. I'll just sit and talk to her.
While Sadler's sister Lacey Marino visits often, it's the first time Paul Buttram's wife Rachel has been back since that day.
I really didn't want to come back down here. It's too much of a reminder of that whole entire day.
But she came for him.
This can't keep happening.
Good afternoon.
Thursday, lawyers for the families of the 3 slain firefighters and John McMaster, who was injured in the fire, filed notice of their plan to sue the city and the state.
This is about more than money. This is about change.
Their notice says the tragedy could and should have been prevented.
This wasn't the first time there was a fire in this vacant property. It wasn't the first time that firefighters had been injured in this property. Everyone en route to that scene had no idea at that time what they were walking into. Strategies can be employed when you know what you're walking into.
The line of duty report released just last week confirmed the firefighters were unaware of the danger inside the home that had been sitting vacant over a decade. A program that marked hazardous vacant homes had been defunct in the city since 2012, and their dispatch system never alerted them. The report also points to a lack of standard operating procedure for responding to vacant home fires.
I've always been scared, for her safety, and moving forward, things need to change. These homes should not be standing the way that they are.
The hope is the city will address the safety of firefighters and the nearly 15,000 vacant homes throughout Baltimore.
I don't know if anything will help. We're never going to get her back, any of them. But it's going to save other families from having to deal with it later, because it's never going to stop. These buildings are going to keep falling down. They're going to keep catching on fire, and nobody's going to know. And they're going to go in, and it's going to happen again and again and again. And the city's not going to care again and again and again. And somebody else is going to be standing just like we are.
So as these families are still deep in the grip of grief,
I relive these moments every single day. Every day. And it doesn't get any better.
They're making this fight their purpose.
I really hope that they wake up and they take this as a step in the direction that they need to move things and not just fizzle things out after a couple months to get us off their tails, because I'm not somebody that's going to fizzle out.
Well, Fire Chief Niles Ford, he resigned last Friday in the wake of that Stricker Street fire. You can see all of our original reporting from deteriorating equipment to new safety programs right now
on FOXBaltimore.com.
Elsewhere in a city in crisis, a man is dead and another man is fighting for his life after a double shooting at a Royal Farms along West Patapsco Avenue in South Baltimore. 317 people have been killed in the city this year. That outpaces this time last year. Community members are frustrated.
Mayor Brandon Scott, please do something about what's going on. Like, it's really concerning. We can't even bring our own children outside just to take them to the store, just regular, normal activity things. So it's please, Brandon Scott, do something. Do something. Please stop sitting behind the desk.
Well, Mayor Scott promised to reduce deadly violence while he was campaigning, saying homicides would drop by 15% each year. Today, 2 years after he was sworn in, the crime crisis rages on. We have live team coverage of the bloodshed, starting with Fox 45's Jeff Abel, and a look at what the mayor's done about crime during his time in office so far. Jeff?
Well, despite some bold promises, there are questions tonight whether the mayor's crime plan is really an effective plan.
In many corners of the city, you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone convinced the streets are growing safer.
Man, I have not talked to anybody in this city that says they feel a little bit safer.
And bear true allegiance.
It was 2 years ago today when Baltimore welcomed a new mayor who brought a whole new round of promises.
I will aim to reduce homicides by 15% each year in my term, getting us below 300 homicides in my first year.
But by the time the mayor had settled into office, his bold promises had begun to fade. Homicides have consistently soared, not below, but above the 300 mark, both years of the Mayor Scott's administration. By the end of the summer, violent crime had increased 15% compared to the year before.
At what point does it become clear to us that it is not working?
This summer, city council members demanded a different crime plan, but Mayor Scott pressed on, often dodging questions.
We ask you just a question.
Just a quick moment. Mayor Scott, how do you plan to delineate?
The mayor's 5-year crime plan expands community violence reduction groups like Safe Streets and expands the war on illegal guns.
We are talking about, McKenzie, a disease of violence that has existed in Baltimore for over 50 years. And the people of Baltimore want it to be handled the right way, and they also understand that it's bigger than the police department.
Clearly, there's nobody connected to that office that knows what they're doing.
Community activist Kenji Scott believes the problem begins with the department's top brass, and the city cannot afford 2 more years of business as usual.
Why Brandon won't fire him, I do not know. But clearly, we need a new coach. We need somebody in that police department that know what they're doing. People are dying every day. This ain't time to play no kids' games.
Well, also plaguing the police department is the issue of staffing. The department still remains hundreds of officers short. We are live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, year 2 of the mayor's term has brought several other high-profile issues. Just yesterday, we told you about the campaign finance report showing he accepted a donation from businessman J.P. Grant. Grant is part of a company that was awarded $12 million in city contracts days later. Now, the mayor also stood by DPW's handling of the Labor Day weekend E. coli water crisis, despite a Fox 45 News investigation showing a communication breakdown and delayed action. Mayor Scott also faced questions about a dead rat found at a city sexual health clinic. An inspection found that the rat in 2021, and it was still there this September, according to an inspector general report. The Druid Hill Clinic was never shut down. And he and the council have butted heads multiple times over communication. In September, the city council president said there was no notification about an overhaul to Safe Streets. Nick Mosby said being left out was, quote, problematic. That brings us now to our question of the night. Would you vote for Mayor Scott for a second term? You can go to foxbaltimore.com/vote and tap the Pulse tab to weigh in. It's early, but so far 100% of voters say no.
The Park Heights community is reeling tonight after 4 people are shot and killed in less than 24 hours. Tonight, the mother of one of the victims is speaking out.
They don't want to understand what a parent go through when you remove their child from their life. And God didn't take him there himself.
Fox 45's Keith Daniels spoke with that grieving mother. He continues our live team coverage tonight. And Keith, this is a heartbreaking story.
Heartbreaking, Kai. Now, this mother told us she lost another son to violence, gun violence, on the streets of Baltimore in 2016. His name was Rondell Street, and tonight, Rondell's brother is one of the city's latest victims. What Rhonda Phillips needs now are answers. So many questions loom after the murder of her son, Rashard Hall.
He was found in his house, in a chair, with a blow to the head.
Police got the call just after 9 o'clock Thursday morning. Investigators found Hall inside his home on St. Ambrose Avenue near Reisterstown Road. The 32-year-old man dead from a gunshot wound.
I want the person who did this to pay for their crime, for what they did to my son. That was my child.
Hall and 3 others were killed and another injured in separate shootings in less than a 24-hour span, beginning just after 10 o'clock Wednesday morning. All of them gunned down in the Central Park Heights area, a community represented by Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton. We tried reaching out to Middleton with questions.
Hello, you have reached Sharon Green Middleton, your Baltimore City Council representative of the 6th District. Please leave a detailed message, your name and number, and I will return your call as soon as I can.
The mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time. Goodbye.
Unable to leave a message for Middleton, and our repeated phone calls about the deadly gun violence unanswered. We wanted to ask her, what steps have you taken in addressing this issue? Have you been in contact with police commanders in your district about the matter? And what steps, if any, are police in your district taking to control shootings in the area? According to police data, there have been 8 homicides in the Central Park Heights community so far this year, and 15 non-fatal shootings so far this year. Not clear if the latest incidents are included in those totals. Meantime, the mother of one of the latest victims feeling the pain of the bloodshed.
The violence it's overwhelming.
Well, so far, no word of any arrests in any of these shootings. Now, if you have any information, police want to hear from you. You can call Metro Crime Stoppers. Remember, you can remain anonymous and could be eligible for a reward. We're live tonight. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Now, Fox 45 News will continue to follow the crime crisis in the city of Baltimore. Our commitment to you is to constantly question city leaders and hold them accountable.
All right, taking a look at what we expect as we head into the morning commute tomorrow. Expect those temperatures under some clearing skies after some evening showers, dropping down to about 35 to 40, at least no more fog or anything like that as you're heading out and about early in the day. I'm going to let you know, though, when we could have some snow returning in our forecast over the weekend. My Weather Authority forecast.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, our investigation into the Safe Streets program continues with no clarity from city leaders on how taxpayer money is being spent. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost goes directly to 2 operators for answers. WNBA player Brittany Griner on her way home from a Russian prison, but a Marine remains behind. His family reacts as we take a closer look at that prisoner swap, which includes the so-called Merchant of Death. Plus, a Baltimore City Council member introduces a bill to undo the vote for term limits in the city of Baltimore. Fox 45 News asks each member where they stand. You'll hear their responses coming up at 10:30. The Fox 45's investigation into Baltimore's Safe Streets program continues. City Council President Nick Mosby raising more questions about the lack of oversight into how the organizations overseeing the program spending your tax dollars.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost questioned those community-based organizations about how they're spending the money and why the public doesn't know that information.
Inside City Hall, questions about how tax dollars are being spent once the money is given to fund Safe Streets. That's the gun violence prevention and intervention program with 10 different locations all around the city. But where the millions of dollars go once it's given to the community groups remains unclear. Even City Council President Nick Mosby isn't sure.
Do you know how the CBOs spend the money?
I don't understand the question.
Do you know how the CBOs are spending the money that the city allocates to them in terms of who they're paying salaries to, how they're funding the training, who does the training?
No, I do not.
Shouldn't you?
Again, the way that you're asking the question, we're doing it in a lump. You have to ask specific questions about specific Safe Streets, about specific organizations.
Come January, Catholic Charities and LifeBridge Health Center for Hope will oversee the Safe Streets programs at all 10 locations. Both nonprofits get money from the taxpayers and have a responsibility to be transparent about where that money is going. So we sent them a few questions asking, how much money do you receive from the city annually for the implementation of Safe Streets? What's the breakdown of your budget for the program? How much will that budget increase when the expansion in programs begins in January? How much is spent on salaries? And what are the salaries for each Safe Streets employee? Catholic Charities ignoring our questions. LifeBridge Health telling Fox 45 News they couldn't meet our deadline for a response. Meanwhile, as the transition continues to put a more centralized management of the Safe Streets program in place, which has been plagued with accountability and performance concerns, Council President Mosby passes off answering questions.
Well, the two Safe Streets organizations, the CBOs that will be managing it, Catholic Charities and LifeBridge,
have done an amazing job in the past. So I think your question is probably more germane to the way it was run prior to them taking over. And I think that that's the difficulty or the lack of information that you have to ask a question that is specific.
Well, I mean, we've been asking the city for over a year for this specific information. So if you have that information, I'd love to see it.
I believe the program just recently switched.
Catholic Charities and LifeBridge have always operated some of the Safe Streets locations, though.
I think that's what I just communicated to you. But now they're taking over all of them. Right. So I think that what I communicated to you is that in the past, the way that they've been operating has been pretty sufficient. It's been really good. Now, if your question is about the way other organizations were operating in the past, we would have to talk about the specifics associated with that.
So each CBO spent the money differently, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Where can we see how they spent that money?
Talk to the mayors about that.
The Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, or MONSE, oversees the Safe Streets program, and the director, Shantae Jackson, refuses to sit down for an interview with us to talk about how Safe Streets operates and how the city tracks the spending of your tax dollars. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
From going to Safe Streets locations, looking for employees, to pouring through documents and pressing leaders for answers, Fox 45 has been investigating the Safe Streets program for months now. You can head to foxbaltimore.com to see all of our reporting and push for transparency. New tonight, a Baltimore County Public Schools employee is arrested on child pornography possession charges. 49-year-old Craig Klontz is being held without bond at the Baltimore County Detention Center. In a release, Baltimore County Police say their detectives do not believe BCPS students are victims.
Tonight, a new report is detailing efforts by the Catholic Church to help limit lawsuits on abuse. According to the Baltimore Sun, the Maryland Catholic Conference, which is the church's public policy arm, has spent more than $200,000 in that effort. They have hired former lawmakers and government officials as lobbyists to stop lawmakers from expanding the statute of limitations on lawsuits. Under state law, child abuse survivors have until their 38th birthday to sue. The Baltimore Archdiocese told the paper they've supported expanding the statute of limitations. Just weeks ago, the state reported finding more than 100 priests accused of abuse. There's a fight in court right now to make that report public.
WNBA star Brittany Griner is released from Russian detainment. What we're learning about the prisoner swap that set her free. That's coming up right after the break.
And tracking this weekend, the potential still of some snow, although it doesn't look like it happens now Friday night into Saturday. Take a look at our future scan computer model that plans some of this out into potentially early Sunday. I'm going to let you know how much you could expect as the temperatures chill down and rain and maybe some snow chances come up. It's all on my Weather Authority forecast.
We're taking a look now at the Fox box. In the top left, a new poll shows 47% of voters who would hypothetically back the 2024 Republican nominee for president would vote for Governor Ron DeSantis. He has a 5-point lead over former President Donald Trump.
On the top right, President Joe Biden's approval ratings remain low. 43% say they approve of his job performance, while 55% say they disapprove. That according to a new Associated Press NORC poll. At this time last year, he was polling at 48% approval.
In the bottom left, the House passes legislation to protect same-sex and interracial marriage. The bill received bipartisan support. President Biden is expected to sign it quickly.
And on the bottom right, a live look at the San Antonio airport where Brittany Griner is expected to land in the next few hours after 9 months in Russian detention. Griner's release was part of a prisoner swap with a Russian arms dealer known as the Merchant of Death.
Yeah, the fight continues for families of other Americans wrongfully detained abroad, like Paul Whelan, who's been held in Russia since 2018 on espionage charges.
National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has the latest on what we know about this prisoner swap and what comes next.
News of WNBA star Brittany Griner's release bringing feelings of relief and overwhelming joy for her supporters and family.
Just sincere gratitude for President Biden and his entire administration.
Also in contact with the administration is Paul Whelan's family. His twin brother David says they were given a heads up about the swap that freed Griner and that it would not include Paul. In July, CNN reported the administration originally offered to exchange arms dealer Victor Boot, also known as the Merchant of Death, for both Griner and Whelan. On Thursday, the White House said it was a one-for-one deal.
That was always the goal, to get both of them home, and we just couldn't make it work. This was the deal we could get, and now was the moment we could get it.
Whelan telling CNN Thursday Russia is singling him out, pointing to a fellow prisoner also from a Western country.
Even though we're both here for espionage, I'm treated much differently than he is. And my treatment is also much different than others held for espionage at other prisons.
There are worries about the danger that comes with returning Boot back to Russia in exchange for Griner's release.
This will only beget more Americans being taken on specious charges, much like Brittany Griner, much like Paul Whelan were taken, right? These aren't comparable. This guy was a bad guy, moving arms around the world, threatening the United States of America.
Mickey Bergman works in hostage negotiations and told our chief political correspondent Scott Thuman earlier this year, while nobody likes releasing guilty people in return for the innocent, he's come to develop a strong opinion about doing what it takes to get Americans back home.
And there's a price that we might not like, but we have to pay for it because it's our obligation to bring them back home.
As for whether this trade incentivizes hostile countries to detain more Americans, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says that's already something Russia and other countries have proven they're willing to do. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar.
Well, voters decided to put term limits on city leaders. Now that's up for debate. Fox 45 News is demanding answers after a councilman introduced a bill that would repeal term limits.
Record high inflation is taking a toll on Americans. How we're faring in the face of rising prices.
We're following three big stories tonight.
TikTok is top of mind for many as several governors around the country have banned it for state employees and their devices. Well, now safety and security concerns are popping up. We'll take a closer look at the first of its kind lawsuit against the app.
And residents in Essex are on edge as the state gets ready to leave the Back River wastewater treatment plant. What has them so concerned?
And as a city council member, trying to override the will of the people. Fox 45 News demands answers from Councilman Ryan Dorsey about a bill that would repeal term limits for elected officials.
And that's where we begin tonight. In a city in crisis, more than 70% of voters passed Question K in last month's election, placing term limits on some of the city's elected leaders. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor pressed Councilman Ryan Dorsey on his decision today. She has his response.
Yeah, Baltimore City voters have already made their voices heard on this issue, but now Councilman Dorsey is arguing they got it wrong.
That voters should be able to always be free to choose their representation without interference.
Inside City Hall Thursday, one of the city's newest charter amendments still making waves post-election day. You may remember it as Question K on your ballot this November. It asked voters if your locally elected leaders should be subject to term limits. A whopping 72% of you said yes. But now Councilman Ryan Dorsey trying to reverse the decision his own constituents made. He's proposing a bill that would produce a counter ballot question in 2024, repealing the newly established term limits.
This is the power of money and influence run amok. Question K's effect will be to strip voters of their choice.
Anyways, what Ryan Dorsey's doing with this amendment is giving the voters a giant middle finger, and it's not telling them they're number one.
According to political analyst John Deedy, when the vast majority of voters put term limits in place, they made a statement, one he doesn't think they'll be walking back anytime soon.
I think that voters were speaking that they were frustrated with city government, and I think if city government leaders want to, repeal or get rid of it, I think they're going to have to make the case they're doing a good job. And the problem is, over the last 20 years, people haven't seen a lot of competence out of City Hall.
Fox 45 reaching out to all 14 city council members and the mayor, asking if they support Dorsey's proposal. Why or why not? And what message does this send to voters who overwhelmingly voted in favor of term limits? Although city council members Odette Ramos, Danielle McCrae, and Christopher Burnett all agreeing to sponsor the bill, Councilman Yitzi Schleifer, the only one to directly respond to our questions.
To completely repeal it is a slap in the face to the voters.
Meanwhile, Dorsey isn't the only city official wrestling the results of Question K. In response to being limited to 2 4-year terms in each office, Council President Nick Mosby proposing elected leaders receive an early pension to be earned after 8 years instead of the current 12. That bill ultimately slapped with a veto from Mayor Scott and drawing sharp criticism and concern from the city's ethics board. Mosby saying he won't override the veto personally, but he will support anyone who does.
Maybe, Ryan Dorsey saw that as kind of a bat signal to, hey, I got an idea here. Let's try this one out.
Leaving the door open for further debate on a decision voters thought they were done with. Now, this was just the introduction of Dorsey's bill, so no one actually voted on it today. The next step is for it to go through committee. If it does go through a committee and it passes, then this will be up for vote for City Council, and they'll decide whether or not to pass or reject it. Reporting from City Hall tonight, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Well, we would like to know what you think. Do you trust city leaders with your tax dollars? 97% of voters say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Mayor Brandon Scott joined DPW Director Jason Mitchell to launch Be More Wise, the Baltimore Water Infrastructure Strategic Educational Program. Now, that program offers training to residents to pursue long-term careers with DPW.
I don't want folks to start and finish at the same level. I started as an intern, now I'm the CEO. That's how we want our folks to do when they come into city government. We want them to do, as you heard from Director Mitchell, grow from the bottom to the top, because that's how you get the best experience. That's how you develop the best leaders.
Well, the program is open to any city resident who's at least 18 years of age with a high school diploma.
Well, meanwhile, more concerns are popping up surrounding DPW's Back River wastewater treatment plant.
That's right. A state oversight of that plant is coming to an end. Fox 45's Amy Simpson visited the Back River treatment plant today, where residents are on edge.
The way things stand right now, state environmental officials will leave the Back River wastewater treatment plant at the end of this year, a little over 3 weeks from now, on December 31st. But some say now is not the time for them to go.
after days of rain. Today, finally calm waters along Back River in eastern Baltimore County.
It's beautiful. It doesn't feel like December at all.
But on the other bank sits the Baltimore City-owned Back River wastewater treatment plant. And while neighbors often report a stench in the air.
Almost daily. Almost daily. You smell it coming around the 695 bend from Sparrows Point into Essex. You smell it the opposite direction.
A bigger concern for some is the looming date for Baltimore City DPW to resume full control of the plant.
Will they do the right thing and keep MES on site? I hope so. I think everybody hopes so.
After a state takeover of the plant in March, workers from the Maryland Environmental Service have been boots on the ground, working to get the plant, the largest of its kind in Maryland, into compliance and working order. In October, an extension was approved to keep those state environmental officials on site until December 31st. But that date is just 3 weeks away, and some, like the Back River Restoration Committee, which advocates for the health of the river and its community, fearful the plant could lose its forward progress or slide back into disrepair without a level of oversight and accountability in place.
We are worried that they're not going to be able to handle the plant without those eyes on the ground and those folks that are truly knowledgeable in that field. And we're told from several other entities that they are also concerned about the status of the plant if MES were to leave.
In a statement today, the Maryland Department of the Environment telling FOX45 News, at this time, the amended consent order remains in effect. It terminates if the treatment plant continues to remain in compliance with the effluent standards described in the legal agreement. The city and MES continue negotiations regarding MES remaining on site. Today, Baltimore City DPW saying, in part, the agency has been and continues to be the driving force in the operations and maintenance of the plant. Says DPW is meeting limits of what's being discharged, and of 84 active operators at the plant, 80 are city employees, with just 4 from MES. A timeline was not given, but a spokesperson also says, quote, DPW expects key MES staff to continue to oversee critical projects to completion. Meanwhile, questions linger about the impact on this waterfront community if state environmental workers walk out the door at the end of the year.
They know how it should run and how it shouldn't run, and they know that this plant is in desperate need of help. And I've been told by several employees that if they leave, we will be headed towards a catastrophic failure.
Today, I also asked the state if it has confidence in Baltimore City DPW's ability to operate and maintain the Back River plant on its own. That question was not answered. In Essex, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 News has been following the problems at the Back River wastewater treatment plant for months. You can find all of our reporting on our website, foxbaltimore.com. More and more states are banning TikTok for state employees. They don't want TikTok on government devices. In fact, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan did this recently. Now, the latest Texas Governor Greg Abbott directing state agencies to ban that video sharing app on all government issued devices. And as I mentioned, Maryland's own governor did the same thing earlier this week. He talked about his decision on Fox News this morning.
When everybody knows about the concern, they're issuing warnings. The president could take the exact same actions that I took and that other governors have taken, at least with all the whole federal government agencies and systems and employees. And then, there's discussions on Capitol Hill about the potential to take some action by Congress. But there's, a whole lot of talk and not a whole lot of action, which is why we decided we had to move forward.
Despite TikTok's claims of youth well-being policies, new lawsuits are renewing concerns about what some call inappropriate and sometimes potentially dangerous content displayed to minors using the app. Dee Gatton has the story.
TikTok is on a lot of people's minds right now. On the national level, we've seen lawmakers taking action against the app. But now parents are telling me they're doing everything they can to protect their children online.
Scrolling through TikTok, you're bound to find a challenge.
How to make ammo for your RB's gun.
Or 2. Or 3.
Benadryl challenge is when you take 12 Benadryls to hallucinate.
Content that has been linked to deadly consequences among America's youth. Parents nationwide voicing their concerns.
It's just becoming harder to shield youth from certain things.
From a father of 3 to a mother of 4, they're all navigating this new world of social media.
The oldest, yes, she's obviously in charge of all of her own social media. The littles, our 10-year-old and our 8-year-olds,
We try to, in our family, limit device use as much as possible.
This week, in the first state lawsuits against TikTok, Indiana's Attorney General sued the Chinese-owned media platform in an effort to keep families like these safe. The complaint calls for transparency on the age appropriateness of its content, further claiming the company deceives people about how much data is collected.
Anything that's directing content that's not youth appropriate towards youth is I mean, there's a lot of negative adjectives I could throw out there, but anything in that regard is it's disheartening.
Parents trying to get a handle on the 24/7 exposure to content that could be unsafe.
I've seen like different TikTok videos too, like via YouTube, and so one of the things that I was big on was just making sure that again there were guardrails up.
Absolutely, we as conscious adults ought to be making better decisions for what we're allowing into our young people's minds. A lot of people with a lot of money in those places don't care so much about the emotional impact and trauma that we're causing young people and what it's causing in our next generation.
These Indiana lawsuits seek emergency injunctive relief and civil penalties against the company. Reporting for the National Desk, I'm Dee Dee Gatton.
Let's take a look at your financial headlines right now. Stocks rebounded today. The Dow soared 183 points. The Nasdaq picked up 123, and the S&P was up 30 points. Remember, we told you the market was down this week pretty significantly, but ending its longest losing streak since October.
Well, the number of Americans filing for unemployment is climbing. Claims for last week rose to 230,000, a jump of about 4,000.
Gas prices are now lower than they were at this time last year. According to AAA, the price of a regular gallon of gas is $3.32 a gallon. The average in Maryland, about the same.
And a new poll shows 55% of American adults are experiencing financial hardship. That's a 1% drop from August, but still up overall. Back in January, 49% said they were feeling hardship because of prices. And in November of 2021, that number was 45%. A 17-year-old shot dead at a Maryland cemetery. The search for a killer and how a past most wanted led to a key tip, cracking a cold case.
Ahead on the late edition, signs of optimism as the world's largest volcano continues to erupt. Why local officials are confident about Hawaiians' safety.
All right, a look at the HT radar. We promised you a few light showers and sprinkles this evening, and there they are from Edgewood down to Chestertown and Denton. A little shot of cooler air is moving in with some of this, so by morning, those temperatures probably dropping back down into the 30s and the low 40s. And you can see that most of the showers fairly light and isolated, and they continue to gradually move away. Then out to the west, notice right around Omaha and Minneapolis, we've got winter weather advisories, and this weather maker is what we were tracking potentially for what could have, or maybe could now not happen Friday night into Saturday. We're going to get more into that in a second. But for now, Toyota Ishida Harbor Skycam showing us 49 cloudy skies, winds out of the north at about 5 to 10 miles an hour. And there are your colder temperatures I was talking about wrapping in behind all this. 44 at Cumberland, 40 at Pittsburgh, and 38 at Cleveland. There are those light showers again through about midnight or so. Then those are out of here. There's the cooler air that's off to the north of this weather maker and where some of the snow is. And let's go ahead and track that for you. Future scan again after midnight. Most of those showers are gone. And then working our way overnight into tomorrow, a colder day with highs in the upper 40s instead of 59 like we had today. And then look, into early Saturday, this is when we wanted to maybe see some of that snow. Snow lovers, not there. It looks like the system dries out. But there is some hope. Notice into Sunday morning. This is the newest computer model data coming in. Some of this green, that's rain. And that's what most of us are seeing. But the blue and the pink way up there towards the state line, especially in the morning, although it's a colder day with just kind of a cold rain for most, that could be a little bit of mix or maybe even some wet flakes. Don't get too excited. It's maybe a tenth of an inch of snow on a car top or two, if you even see that. But nonetheless, it's something that we'll be tracking. 37 degrees, mostly cloudy for tonight, 49 tomorrow, sunny skies and cooler again, turning a little more unsettled over the weekend, especially on Sunday with some mainly just scattered showers. And then it stays cool, seasonably so, into the middle of next week. And by the way, with the chances of snow waning over the weekend, we're taking a look ahead with a focus on if there's maybe going to be a white Christmas, what the chances are and what historically it looks like. That's in a brand new weather article I just put together for the FOX Baltimore.com website.
A teen is gunned down inside a cemetery. The shooter, investigators say, part of a known gang that's long plagued D.C. Here's Alexa Ashwell with this week's Maryland's Most Wanted.
This victim, just 17 years old, young enough to be in high school. Investigators say he was shot and killed by this man, a known member of the Columbia Road Boys, about a year ago. Federal agents now joining the search for him. December 2021, Northwest D.C. 17-year-old Samuel Hernandez agrees to meet a group of people at the Rock Creek Cemetery. The irony of the location, chilling.
To find a 17-year-old victim dead on the ground.
What the teen may not have known, investigators say, is the people he agreed to meet with, including Gerson Guzman Orellano, were actually members of the Columbia Road Boys, a gang that originated in D.C.'s Columbia Heights community and predominantly operates within the Northwest Corridor.
They have been involved in other gang-related crimes, violent crimes in the area. And what they do is they will fight and have infights with other gangs in the area, so other cliques in the area.
Investigators say it's unclear why the victim went with the group or exactly what led up to the murder. Police received reports of a shooting and at the scene say they found the teen dead. A check of his cell phone records, investigators say, show he exchanged text messages with a number later connected to Guzman.
Reviewing those text messages shows one about 20 minutes prior asking for a meetup at that location where the murder took place.
But Guzman, nowhere to be found. Investigators say he has significant ties to D.C. and Baltimore, as well as El Salvador.
We do believe that he is in the region. However, he has gotten wind of us looking for him, and he has fled the area. We had some contact with people that knew who he was, and they have not had contact recently.
The U.S. Marshal Service stressing Guzman must be brought to justice.
We have a 17-year-old who's dead and another one who's on the run for murder.
Right now, there's a $25,000 reward for information on this case, so take a good look. The suspect here described as standing at about 5'9" and weighing approximately 190 pounds. If you have any information into his whereabouts, you can contact the U.S. Marshal Service. The tip line number right here, 1-877-WANTED-2. Or you can reach out to agents directly. The number right here, 202-819-5058. Now to an update. Just 3 months after appearing on Maryland's Most Wanted, Amber Anthony is now in custody. The Baltimore woman is accused of setting fire to a gas station over a declined credit card back in July. Investigators say a viewer recognized her on this segment and led agents to where she was staying in Northeast Baltimore. Anthony now facing first-degree arson charges. If you recognize any of the fugitives on our board, contact the U.S. Marshals Service. Remember, you can always remain anonymous, and you could earn a reward. I'm Alexa Ashwell, and this is Maryland's Most Wanted.
Ahead on the late edition, tragedy strikes Park Heights again. One mother's emotional plea as her second child falls victim to the violence. And more than 1,000 New York Times workers, they go on strike. Their demands and how long the protest is expected to last. And no Lamar Jackson at Ravens practice for the second straight day as the Ravens gear up for the Steelers. How the offense is preparing without him ahead on Sports Unlimited.
So the Ravens' offensive struggles have been evident the last 3 games, all against 3-win teams. The offense ranks 23rd in red zone percentage, and that's due to questionable play calling and poor execution. And to make things worse, the Ravens could be without Lamar Jackson for this game and maybe the next. If that's the case, barring any setbacks, it'll be Tyler Huntley's time to shine, potentially opening the door for the team's backup quarterback to make his first start of the season. And offensive coordinator Greg Roman has all the faith in the world.
The great thing about Tyler is he's his harshest critic. And when he learns something, he files it and, he kind of takes it personal. So, he's really excited about this, but the fact that he was able to play a stretch of games like that is an amazing experience for him, amazing experience. That's how you get good. You get good at football by playing football. So he was able to play real NFL football, and I think that's really going to help him moving forward.
The last time Maryland women's basketball was on the road, Diamond Miller hit a buzzer beater to beat number 7 Notre Dame. 1 week later, And it's down to the wire again. There's something about Maryland women's basketball on Thursday nights. Brenda Frese in search of her 600th career win as the Terps battled with Purdue. Terps trailed by 3 at the half. Fourth quarter, they'd find themselves down 4. Last Thursday, it was Diamond Miller. This Thursday, how about Cheyenne Sellers? Maryland wins it at the buzzer, 77-74. 600th career victory for Brenda Frese. Congratulations to her. Coming up tonight, Kyle Gibson. He's one of the newest members of the O's organization. His thoughts on working with Adley Rutschman and that left field wall. Ahead on Sports Unlimited.
Well, ahead on the late edition, families of firefighters killed on Stricker Street are demanding accountability, why they say those deaths were completely avoidable. Well, Hanukkah and Christmas, they're happening at the same time this year, so no matter what holiday you celebrate this time of year, it can be stressful. Experts say you can manage holiday stress by tuning in and acknowledging how you feel.
We know that stress will find its way out. So we want to stop and really slow down and pay attention to what we feel, and also notice that there might be shame or judgment attached to it, and we want to get rid of that.
Experts say if certain holiday traditions are causing stress, don't be afraid to change them or just ditch them altogether.
Families of fallen firefighters begin to take legal action against Baltimore city leaders. Why they say January's deadly fire on Stricker Street was completely avoidable.
The violence is overwhelming.
A deadly shooting leaves a Baltimore community shattered. One victim's mother speaks to Fox 45 as tragedy strikes her family for a second time. Today marks the halfway point of Mayor Brandon Scott's 4 years in office. Fox 45 News looks at campaign promises to reduce crime as the city's violence rises.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News Late Edition.
always been scared, for her safety. And moving forward, things need to change.
This is about more than money. This is about change.
I really didn't want to come back down here. It's too much of a reminder of that whole entire day.
Good evening, I'm Kai Jackson. There are new developments in the Stricker Street fire investigation as the families of 3 fallen firefighters are preparing to sue the city of Baltimore. They say the January tragedy was completely preventable, and they believe firefighters had no idea what they were walking into, calling it a death trap. The legal filing lists several reasons for concern, including the city's ongoing vacant home crisis and, at the time of the fire, a lack of markings on dangerous homes. One victim's husband says the lawsuit is about the lives of future firefighters.
I don't know if anything will help. We're never going to get her back, any of them. But it's going to save other families from having to deal with it later. Because it's never going to stop. These buildings are going to keep falling down. They're going to keep catching on fire. And nobody's going to know. And they're going to go in, and it's going to happen again. And again and again. And the city's not going to care again and again and again. And somebody else is going to be standing just like we are.
And just last week, Baltimore Fire Chief Niles Ford stepped down amid the release of the investigative report into the fire. A program to mark vacant homes at risk of collapse has now resumed in the city.
Breaking tonight, a double shooting at a South Baltimore Royal Farms left one person dead and another fighting for their life. Police say a 24-year-old man died after being shot in the head. A 31-year-old victim was rushed to shock trauma.
Now, these shootings come on the heels of 4 separate shootings in Park Heights over the past 48 hours. Of the 5 total victims, 4 were killed. The latest this morning along St. Ambrose Avenue, resulting in the death of a 32-year-old man. We have team coverage tonight as Baltimore now sits at 317 people killed this year. Jeff Abel looks at the mayor's response and promise to reduce killings. We begin with Keith Daniels and the mother of a victim today. Keith?
Well, this mother told us she lost another son to gun violence on the streets of Baltimore in 2016. His name was Rondell Street, and tonight, Rondell's brother is one of the city's latest victims. What Rhonda Phillips needs now are answers. So many questions loom after the murder of her son, Rashard Hall.
He was found in his house, in a chair, with a blow to the head.
Police got the call just after 9 o'clock Thursday morning. Investigators found Hall inside his home on St. Ambrose Avenue near Reisterstown Road. The 32-year-old man dead from a gunshot wound.
I want the person who did this to pay for their crime, for what they did to my son. That was my child.
Hall and 3 others were killed and another injured in separate shootings in less than a 24-hour span, beginning just after 10 o'clock Wednesday morning. All of them gunned down in the Central Park Heights area, a community represented by Councilwoman Sharon Green Middleton. We tried reaching out to Middleton with questions.
Hello, you have reached Sharon Green Middleton, your Baltimore City Council representative of the 6th District. Please leave a detailed message, your name and number, and I will return your call as soon as I can.
The mailbox is full and cannot accept any messages at this time. Goodbye.
Unable to leave a message for Middleton, and our repeated phone calls about the deadly gun violence unanswered. We wanted to ask her, what steps have you taken in addressing this issue? Have you been in contact with police commanders in your district about the matter? And what steps, if any, are police in your district taking to control shootings in the area? According to police data, there have been 8 homicides in the Central Park Heights community so far this year, and 15 non-fatal shootings so far this year. Not clear if the latest incidents are included in those totals. Meantime, the mother of one of the latest victims feeling the pain of the bloodshed.
The violence is overwhelming.
Well, so far, no arrest in any of those shootings. Now, police say if you have any information, you can call Metro Crime Stoppers. Remember, you can remain anonymous and could be eligible for a reward. Reporting tonight, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
and that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
to
the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof.
It's been exactly 2 years since Mayor Brandon Scott took that oath of office, and slashing gun violence by 15% was one of his top priorities and goals. So far, that hasn't come quite to fruition. Fox 45's Jeff Abel continues our team coverage with a look at promises made during the mayor's first 2 years.
Well, despite some bold promises, the city's death toll keeps rising. And now, after 2 years in office, there are questions whether the mayor's crime plan is really an effective plan.
In many corners of the city, you'll be hard-pressed to find anyone convinced the streets are growing safer.
Man, I have not talked to anybody in this city that says they feel a little bit safer.
And bear true allegiance.
It was 2 years ago today when Baltimore welcomed a new mayor who brought a whole new round of promises.
I will aim to reduce homicides by 15% each year in my term, getting us below 300 homicides in my first year.
But by the time the mayor had settled into office, his bold promises had begun to fade. Homicides have consistently soared, not below, but above the 300 mark both years of the Mayor Scott's administration. By the end of the summer, violent crime had increased 15% compared to the year before.
At what point does it become clear to us that it is not working?
This summer, city council members demanded a different crime plan, but Mayor Scott pressed on, often dodging questions.
Can we ask her just a question?
Just a quick moment.
Mayor Scott, how do you plan to delineate?
The mayor's 5-year crime plan expands community violence reduction groups like Safe Streets and expands the war on illegal guns.
We are talking about, McKenzie, a disease of violence that has existed in Baltimore for over 50 years. And the people of Baltimore want it to be handled the right way, and they also understand that it's bigger than the police department.
Clearly, there's nobody connected to that office that knows what they're doing.
Community activist Kenji Scott believes the problem begins with the department's top brass, and the city cannot afford 2 more years of business as usual.
Why Brandon won't fire him, I do not know. But clearly, we need a new coach. We need somebody in that police department that know what they're doing. People are dying every day. This ain't time to play no kids' games.
Also plaguing the police department is the issue of staffing. That department still remains hundreds of officers short. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
A 14-year-old is in custody tonight, accused of shooting another 14-year-old at Suitland High School in Prince George's County. Prince George's County police say the student was shot between classes around 10 a.m. on the grounds near the football field. Apparently, an argument turned into a fight, and that led to the shooting. Prince George's County police say the wounded student was shot in the hand and should be okay. Well, coming up, one city council member pushes back on term limits despite overwhelming approval from voters. Why he's calling the origins of term limits into question.
And the bus stop forecast for tomorrow morning. Drop-off time 36 and clear. Gorgeous day, although cooler with sunshine. By pickup around 50. I'm going to let you know how things look into the weekend. We're talking potential of snow. I'll let you know how that's evolved. Coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
And what we know from the research of legislative term limits in particular is that the people lined up to fill the seat are more likely to have been bought and paid for by wealthy and powerful interests, just like question K itself.
Ryan Dorsey isn't holding back his frustrations over term limits at a city council meeting. He's pushing for a ballot question to repeal term limits for elected leaders, despite overwhelming support from voters. One political expert calls that move a slap in the face to voters.
You have a political leader saying, and we don't think you know better. We know better. We should do something about this. And, basically what we should do is, let's pass something that totally, null and voids what voters said they wanted 2 years ago, and let's re-vote on it again. That's what he's really doing.
Well, Fox 45 News reached out to Dorsey several times today requesting a comment. So far, we haven't heard back. We also reached out to the 14 other members of the council to see where they stand. Councilmember Yitzi Schleifer responded saying he thinks term limits should stay in place and he believes the council should respect the will of the voters. Coming up, WNBA star Brittany Griner free from a Russian prison after nearly a year behind bars. While her family celebrates, another family is left wondering what it will take to bring home their loved one. And let's take you live right now to the tarmac in San Antonio, Texas. WNBA star Brittany Griner is expected to arrive back in the United States after nearly a year in a Russian prison. Her release is part of a controversial prisoner swap that sent a Russian arms dealer in the other direction. It's a relief for Griner's family, but still no consolation for the family of Paul Whelan, a former Marine also detained in Russia.
Just sincere gratitude for President Biden and his entire administration.
That was always the goal, to get both of them home, and we just couldn't make it work. This was the deal we could get, and now was the moment we could get it.
Whalen says Russia is singling him out, saying prisoners from other Western countries are receiving a more fair treatment. Secretary of State Antony Blinken offering more clarity as to why Whalen wasn't part of this deal.
This was not a choice about which American to bring home. The choice was, in this instance, one or none, because unfortunately, Russia has continued to see Paul's case through the lens of sham espionage charges, and they are treating him differently.
Blinken says the State Department has made every possible effort to secure Whalen's release. Local Congressman Kwesi Mfume commends the swap, calling it a great day for all Americans. He went on to thank all Americans for their advocacy, saying a collective effort helped free Brittany Griner. More than 1,000 New York Times employees are into the last hour of a 24-hour strike, taking to the streets to demand higher wages. According to the News Guild of New York, more than 90% of Times workers are taking part. The Times says employees who participate won't be paid for the duration of the strike. An historic addition to U.S. currency as women's signatures are appearing on dollar bills for the first time. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and U.S. Treasurer Lynn Malherbe pinned their signatures. Now, Malherbe is also the first Native American to have her writing featured on bills. The newly printed bills will be available at the Federal Reserve this month.
All right, we've had some talk of some rain, even some talk of some weekend snow. We're going to break down some of the evolutions that are coming our way here and some changes in the next couple of minutes. But first, let's talk about the rain. Exiting showers and sprinkles that we promised you. Earlier today, we were talking at 4, 5, and 6 about some spot showers. Well, there they are, right around Easton to Milford in Delaware and then south toward Fredericksburg. We'll go on the wider view here and slide on the national mode of the radar, and you can see some of that slipping south of us right now. And then there's the weather maker that had the potential, some colder air works in for us, to give us the first accumulating snow of the season, or so we maybe thought, or the computer models, at least at one point or another, thought, for Friday night into Saturday. There it is, just north of Chicago, back toward Minneapolis. Now, there have been some changes with that. Mile 1 Townsend Camp, 48 degrees, clouds, winds out of the northeast at 8 miles an hour. That's going to bring in a little bit chillier air for tomorrow, about 10 degrees colder than the 59 that we had today under some of the clouds. Wind chill at 44. Temperatures all across the map. Well, you got the warmer air in the 40s and 50s south and east, the colder 30s north and west. And that is what's going to be working in over the next, again, couple of days. So that's why precipitation type now becomes a little more of a concern. For now, it's just showers and very light at that. The warmer air that we've been enjoying, well, maybe not enjoying so much, it's been kind of cloudy, but I guess that we've been in kind of the throes of, if you will, over the past couple of days is now getting pushed down to the south. There's a cooler air that's associated with rain switching to snow over portions of the Midwest. And that portion of the system is moving toward us. But take a look here, what happens on the future scan. We have drier and cooler air that moves in as we head into Friday. So high temperatures here likely only in the 40s. Then Friday night, this is when we thought, hey, we could have something going on. Well, the wintry weather's not going to happen. It looks like we're going to kind of take the system and slink it down to the south and actually kind of break it apart. So it's just going to be dry air here, but cold into early Saturday. Then Saturday night, that's when it gets a little more interesting. Now, mind you, this is primarily going to be rain for almost everybody. But you take a look here early on Sunday, if this comes in early enough and cold enough, just say up toward Carroll County, the Hereford zone, the usual suspects could see some wet snowflakes mixed in here. That's what you see in the blue. And then in the pink, that's maybe some rain snow mix, we'll say, some big wet flakes mixed in with some of the scattered showers. Otherwise, everybody else seeing some scattered showers likely during the day on Sunday. How much are you going to see? Well, snow lovers, sorry, it does not look like any barnstormer out of this. Maybe a tenth of an inch of snow in a couple of spots way up there on the state line and mainly unpaved surfaces at that. So not expecting a whole lot here. 37 degrees, mostly cloudy skies. Could see a stray shower or sprinkle all the way through the next hour or two. Then that's gone. Sunny skies and a bit cooler for tomorrow with a high 49. We're at 47 with clouds and sun on Saturday. Again, that additional system moving in for Sunday, maybe a flake or two north and west. Otherwise, scattered showers and 47 near normal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a cold rain could set up on Thursday. And some computer models here also say maybe north and west there could be some wintry weather mixed in, but that's still a full 7 days out. And if that's not enough for you, well, with the snow evolution, we wanted to investigate what does it look like for a white Christmas. Well, on the FOX45 website, we've got a brand new weather article that I put together about it, the chances in history, and maybe some of the chances coming up over the next week or two. Of course, go to FOX45 and the latest is right there.
It used to be COVID-19 leading to delays in care. Now it's something else. I'm Liz Bonus. We tell you about it just ahead.
Let's go live to Capitol Hill right now in Washington as the military vaccine mandate is no more. That change, part of a nearly $900 billion defense package approved in the House today. House Republicans have long pushed for the change, while Democrats say it's too soon and to repeal that mandate. Meantime, the defense bill also includes 4% pay increases for military members. When it comes to health, money is becoming an important factor in the care people receive. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shows how high prices are keeping people out of the doctor's office.
Hey there, everybody. A recent survey found COVID-19 used to be our top reason for delaying care. Now it appears it's something else: inflation.
I mean, people are pretty stressed out right now. We've had a lot of people coming in needing personal loans just to cover holiday expenses and just additional bills and things like that.
Financial coach Danielle Pierce says she's already seeing what Cleveland Clinic healthcare providers and Qualtrics data shows. Nearly a third of us have deferred health care this year, and more than 1 in 4 chose not to fill a prescription due to cost concerns. That's comparable to the put-offs due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The problem is that, as Sandra Wright knows,
your health is your wealth. And if you don't have that, nothing else really matters.
Sandra is a heart transplant survivor, and when you delay care for your heart or any other health concern, Ohio's TriHealth Heart Institute providers say it can drive up the cost of care and treatment eventually needed if an undiagnosed illness advances.
I think a lot of primary care visits have gone missed. People's blood pressures, people's diabetes care have maybe gone to the wayside, and I think we are seeing a resurgence of people coming into the office and getting these now treated again.
That research also now showing half of us say cost of health care services and cost of living are the most common reasons we're delaying care. 1 in 3 of us have also taken on financial debt to pay for health care, and almost half of us say we won't seek care if it means we have to take on that debt. Now, in many cases, if you talk to your own healthcare provider and tell them about some of your financial struggles, they can refer you to resources for support that don't cost you anything. You just may not know that they're available. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
Well, the Ravens were so close to beating the Steelers twice a season ago, but close ain't going to cut it. We'll catch up with the defense as they look to snap that streak. That's all for us on the late edition. Thank you for watching. I'm Kai Jackson. Now here's Rocco DeSangro with Sports Unlimited and talk of the Ravens this weekend. Rocco?
Of course, that's all we're talking about, Kai. Well, that and more. This Sunday, the Ravens return to a place they haven't won since October of 2019 to face a team they haven't beaten 4 straight tries. It's one of football's greatest rivalries, but lately it's been a bit one-sided. Listen, the Ravens are well aware of all that. And as Pittsburgh and Baltimore write a new chapter in this rivalry, the Ravens will look to put that streak to bed. Marlon Humphrey suffered a season-ending injury the last time he stepped on that very field. This time around, the former All-Pro defensive back and his team will look to leave Steel City with a win.
Yeah, we started off meetings with me giving up the game winner, so I had to relive the injury, but not really any extra motivation. But, you know, that 0-4 in the past 4 years is for sure. Hopefully that's motivating everybody. You know, this is a team that, you know, it feels really good to win at their place. So, you know, all eyes are towards that. And it's good that they're at full strength. You know, they got TJ back, Minka's back. All their guys are kind of back, and they're also playing well. You know, it wouldn't have been as fun if they were, you know, struggling early on, but now they're playing really good football. So that'll be a good old smash mouth rivalry that I'm really excited for.
So Stuart Mandel of The Athletic is reporting that Ravens offensive coordinator Greg Roman is no longer a candidate for the Stanford head coaching job. The two sides were in contact last week, according to head coach John Harbaugh, but talks were preliminary at the time. The finalists for the job, Sacramento State's Troy Taylor and Jason Garrett. Yes, that Jason Garrett. Well, the last time Maryland women's basketball was on the road, Diamond Miller hit a buzzer beater to beat number 7 Notre Dame. 1 week later, and it's down to the wire again. Brenda Freese in search of her 600th career win as the Terps battled with Purdue. Terps trailed by 3 at the half. Fourth quarter, they'd find themselves down 4. Last Thursday, it was Diamond Miller. This Thursday, how about Cheyenne Sellers at the buzzer for the win? Maryland 77, Purdue 74. 600th career victory for Brenda Fries. Congratulations to her. Coppin State women's basketball also with a tough road test taking on Syracuse. The Eagles fell to the Orange 93-75. Mossy Staples led the team with 21 5-5, double-double for Jalinda Sally with 13 points and 10 boards. The Orioles went out and added a veteran pitcher in free agency, signing 35-year-old Kyle Gibson to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Gibson spent the last 2 seasons in Philly, going 10-8 with a 5.05 ERA and striking out 144 in 2022. So why did he want to come to Baltimore? Well, for one, they have a great young catcher in Adley Rutschman and a deep left field wall.
You know, the more I heard about Adley, obviously the more great things I heard. The other guy I talked to was Robinson Trinos, a good friend from Texas, and man, another guy that only had good things to say about that group. So the wall, obviously, I have always enjoyed playing in Baltimore. You know, as a pitcher, yeah, I mean, I think when you see how many less home runs you would give up if you pitched all your games in Baltimore, that's a pretty good feeling.
Pitchers love the new left field wall. I get it. That's it for this edition of Sports Unlimited. I'm Rocco DeSangro. Thanks for watching and have a great night.